Jack. All right. You got the stuff?
Yeah. All cleaned and oiled.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's get it on.
Who are these guys?
It's my theme music. Every good hero should have some.
Hot damn, it's time to get down to the jam. It's time to get down, it's time to get down, it's time to get down to the jam. I said it's time to get down to the knowledge, gonna get on down with the know. On the morning coffee show, on morning coffee with Keith, here on Pop Culture Minefield.
Yeah. Excuse me. Can I get a cup of coffee? Black?
Can't you see we talking? White?
Well. First and foremost, let me just say good morning, everybody, and I apologize for being so late because technology and I just don't get along. I have come to understand that basically certain things just don't work right with me. Of course, people have probably been saying that for decades. So, I am Keith, and welcome to Morning Coffees with me. Of course, everybody knows the main man himself, the guy I can't do this without, Martin. And today's big special guest, who we've actually had on Pop Culture Minefield before, but it's always great having Mr. Michael Decker with me, my own personal Batman in my life.
Well, thanks for having me.
How are you guys this morning?
Good.
I'm fine. Very
well
stoked by this show.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that makes two. Wow. I want to just thank everybody that stuck around this morning. Andy Morrow, Cam's Crash Courses, Mrs. A, because, you know, it is that way. And all those that initially started out with us, Emmanuel. Hopefully you're still there. Today's show, we, as you can see, this is going to be all Batman today because Batman is just cool. There's just no two ways about it. And in my personal opinion, if somebody had like just mad amounts of just money, you could buy two characters and pretty much just start your own comic book company. And those two characters are Spider-Man and Batman, because the secondary characters, storylines, villains of both characters are just incredible for both of those IPs. Mm-hmm. And they can't be matched by any other single comic. And again, that's saying something, given that you got Superman out there. But Batman especially is just amazing. I can't always say that I'm a big fan of what they do in the comics nowadays, but for both those characters. But I will say this. Part of the reason why I've become more skeptical as I've gotten older is because of how deep all the storylines and characters are for Batman. There's almost no reason to run out of anything. And some of the excuses put forth, especially when it comes to things like the film The Batman and Batman Caped Crusader, that I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't hate it. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Come down to the fact that you've got people that are dealing with the character that don't really understand the character and don't bother really reading anything about the character. There's no reason to have to make up a serial killer within the Batman IP. He's got a lot of them. You know, you don't need to take a character that's never really done that kind of thing and turn them into a serial killer. And as far as the number of women that are just villains within Batman, you don't have to take and change a character. You've got dozens to choose from, right, Michael?
Oh yeah. There's several that haven't even been in the comics for years that you could easily bring them back, revamp them, tweak them a little bit. But there's several. There's plenty.
It's just really sad more than anything else. As a Batman fan, when you hear people say stuff that is just so blatantly not true, and I'm pointing finger directly at the people behind Batman Cape Crusader. The idea that they needed to, there weren't very many women villains, and so they had to make the Penguin a woman. There's nothing wrong with having a female villain.
No.
But there was no reason to change the sex of that particular character. You could have chosen any number of female villains or anyone that you would consider to be even in the gray area in Bruce's life to occupy that role. And it just seems to be more of an excuse than anything else. That plus the fact that you're not dealing with, to me, who was the true power behind Batman the Animated Series. Bruce Timm, I will always give a lot of respect to, but he's more of a design guy. I mean, he may have been a comic book fan, but he was more of a design guy. The guy who they should have approached and should have got is Paul Dini. And this is the second time I've seen an opportunity that somebody has just either skipped Paul Dini altogether or just acted like he never existed, for this and for the He-Man revival that Kevin Smith did. I will always, look, I still like Kevin Smith, but I will always give him a hard time about that. Given Kevin Smith's history with Paul Dini and the fact that he never picked up the phone to call Paul Dini about that.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my initial concerns about the Cape Crusader show was the first kind of red flag for me was that it wasn't done under the Warner umbrella, Max. It went over to Netflix. And secondly, when, Bruce Timm was like, man, that's pretty awesome. But when I noticed the absence of Paul Dini's name, it really concerned me that he was either being excluded or wanted nothing to do with it. And either one was a red flag to me. And I had a lot of concerns early on in its development.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Warner Brothers did actually make it because this was through J.J. Abrams' contract with Warner Brothers. I just think that David Zaslav, once he got a look at it, realized this wasn't going to go well. I think he realized that the last thing you need to do when you are a company that is basically underwater financially is to continue to find ways of pissing off people who could help you pay that bill off in terms of advance. And I just think he was done. I think he was done with it. With JJ and his cast of accomplices that helped out on that show. I mean, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. J.J. Abrams is a talented guy, but he's a guy that there is a cost in doing business with him, which is that he feels the need to alter things, not for the sake of the story or the fans or even the character, but for his own financial enrichment. Changes like this are meant to differentiate this version of the character So it makes it easier for him to get paid once you start looking into things like merchandising.
I think it's a little bit of an ego thing too, and I think that's systemic with media companies, both print and otherwise. That the new writer, the new editor, whomever, new director would come in, and they feel the need to take a property that's been around for going on the short side of 90 years and put their own spin on it. It's like, well, I'm going to do this because people are going to remember me. And it's like, they're going to remember you, but you're probably not going to like the way that they're going to remember you because of what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think this is what he was doing to Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I shudder to think of the kind of damage he was doing to Superman before that project went nowhere.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate because I really do believe that he is a very talented guy. When he's actually just doing the work or doing something that one could at least construe as sort of kind of original for the most part, I think you can safely say that he's one of the best out there. But this proclivity to want to increase the piece of the financial pie that he has is really his weakest point, and precludes him from really achieving all of the heights that he was always wanting to set for himself and for his acolytes. Because there are a lot of people in the business that used to work for JJ who use this same formula even when they do stuff. One of the best and biggest man, I can't talk this morning. One of the best and biggest examples is the current state of Star Trek, ruined completely almost by his acolyte Alex Kurtzman, who has done the same thing. He followed the playbook. You make changes to everything to increase your financial payment in the end. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it hasn't been that big of a success. Since the last time I've done the show, someone has attempted to have a counter offer, switching stories for a moment, to Paramount sale. You've had for the short term, someone come up and wanting to see if they could actually take a shot at buying out the Redstone family and running Paramount. And almost as quickly, they have now decided to jump out. And it was just like that. And so far, it has not derailed where they were a week ago. This is going to happen. Paramount will be sold. David Ellison will take over. And I think in the end, while I think he will be successful in buying out the Redstones, unfortunately, it's looking like Kurtzman has at least kept himself alive for a little while longer, because production will soon start on his Starfleet Academy series. So it's looking like David Ellison and his people weren't quick enough to be able to stop that from happening. But I will say that if there's a way to shut down any and all projects beyond that, I think it's safe to say that'll probably happen under Mr. Ellison. I don't think he's going to go for Alex Kurtzman shenanigans any longer. I think he's done. And it looks like I think it just looks like the Ellison family will be running Paramount, which in my opinion is a good thing. What it means for Star Trek for now, it's just further damaging to the version of Star Trek that Kurtzman and his people have been wanting to put up. And I know that there are people out there that are fans of certain parts of this, but I will say that based on what I have heard, once Ellison fully takes over, all this is gone. There's no sense keeping any part of this. And it'll be really relatively easy to basically just sort of snip off this little piece here and set it to the side. A lot easier than most think. But that also means that the longer it takes to get to that point, the longer it takes to get us back to where we need to be with Star Trek and to get anything new going. Chris Pine came out with a statement talking about how he personally feels about the fact that he figures it's just, he said it was going to be a shame, really, that they don't seem to be moving forward on a Star Trek 4. And I think, as I said online and on X and on a few other places, I said, I completely see where he's coming from, but there's also a side thing that he's not talking about, which is the fact that to complete or do at least even one more Star Trek film with JJ's cast, Paramount's going to have to renegotiate everybody's contracts because everybody's contracts have run out. So if you're someone that's trying to not make any more of these films because of the cost, Paramount is either going to have to do a deal to get this cast to do maybe 3 more movies, or bite the bullet and pay everybody big to do 1 more movie. And at this point, I don't see Ellison and Skydance wanting to really pay out large sums of money. And again, everybody's going to get paid. Everybody's going to get paid if they decide to try to do 1 more movie in any way, shape, or form. Chris Pine, you're going to tell him he can't make $20 million? You're going to tell Lisa Donna she can't make $20 million? You're going to take anybody in that cast, how are you going to argue that they can't get $20 million? So you do another movie, it's pretty much safe to say that you bring this cast back, you're not going to get the time travel story with Kirk and his dad. That's not happening. That's going to be too expensive to do. It's going to be another shipboard adventure. Unless David Ellison decides he wants to go out and just spend, he wants to go out and spend acolyte money to make this.
Well,
But I don't see him wanting to do that. So that, or they can just, go ahead.
I have always said, even since 2009, make another ship, make another crew, and stop messing with the characters we love.
You know what? That's a good idea until Alex Kurtzman came along and ruined that idea too with what he was able to do to the idea of Discovery. Discovery, the original version of Discovery, I am still wanting to see. It would be great if somebody else came along and took the original Bible, the original version of the characters, and made that show. That show's a hit show. That show is something that every Trek fan wants to see. What Alex Kurtzman did to it is a travesty. It's like getting an English major to do an advanced mathematical formula and try to sell you on the fact that they were smart enough to be able to solve it. That's how far off the beaten path his version of Discovery is. If you've seen the Discovery television series that Alex Kurtzman came out with, it's so bad in comparison. It's not even a shadow of what the original basic idea was. he did a number on that. And those out there like me who have actually allegedly have seen parts of the proposal for the show. That show was just bad. It's just bad is what it was. And while I know that they have a lot of very talented people working on Strange New Worlds, it's all part of the Kurtzman verse. It all goes. And they know that. You know, that's the reason why they're, in many ways, why they are racing towards going back on what they said for even that show, what they were going to attempt to do. This new season's going to attempt to bring in more of the original Trek characters. And so you're going to have really a whole new group of actors playing the original Trek characters on that show. So far, you've already gotten Spock, Kirk. I think they've introduced Scotty and Uhura and Chapel already. So coming up, they're going to be introducing us to McCoy. And that's time. So, you know. Let's see. Gap After says we already had a movie called Copycat with Squidward. And then the other thing that I wanted to get to. Oh, yeah.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Am I good now?
Yes. You're always good.
Well, thank you very much.
It only started when you're speaking about Gap After Dark there, so maybe that's the problem.
It could be. Gap's being disruptive. Let's see. Where was I go? Oh yeah. So we are coming up on a very special anniversary real soon. Let's see. September 4th, 1975. And that's the big question. What were you doing September 4th of 1975? Let's see. I was doing a lot of playing. That's a lot of my outdoor time, you know, running around with the other kids in the neighborhood, football, whatever. How about you, Michael?
Well, I was raised on a farm, so there weren't a lot of other kids, and I was the only kid on the farm. So probably just helping out around the farm and just entertaining myself. But I know what the event came up around that time. I watched it, and I would have to make sure of the actual date for me. But I know it was within that week that Channel 13 in Columbia, Missouri, which we could pick up, that Saturday night premiered a TV show that ran for all of 2 seasons that I hold really dear to my heart.
And what show would that be?
That would be Gary Anderson's Space 1999.
You are right. In fact, the pilot had actually been shot and completed a few years before. While the show premiered in 1975, the pilot itself was actually shot and completed in 73.
The pilot was a continuation of Anderson's UFO.
Yeah.
Until the studios they didn't like it. Mostly of the American studios didn't really like it, so they Anderson went back again and again and again and retooled it and just refused to let go of that property because he knew that he had something on his hands, and he pushed and was able to get it through with many changes.
Yes, but it was still a fun show. I remember watching it. I was all of 9 years old when that happened. So that was just a fun show. And post Star Trek, that was the only game in town for a while.
That was it. There wasn't. You had 3 channels, and this was from across the ocean, for Pete's sake. So it's like our movies. We got Superman, and then we had to wait years and years for another superhero movie. So there was not entertainment on demand. You got what you were spoon-fed.
That's true. It's unfortunate because although there were certain places in the United States that did get Doctor Who, not every place did.
Yeah. So a lot of your larger markets, I know St. Louis, when I didn't live there, but St. Louis, when I was growing up, it had a lot of the syndicated stuff. Like it showed a lot of the old Anderson stuff, and it showed Ultraman. It showed Godzilla, Speed Racer, Astro Boy. So a lot of the imported syndicated stuff, some of these larger markets did have, but the smaller markets, like the ones that I could see from Springfield and from Columbia, Jeff City, they didn't have the budgets to buy for to get those shows in. They worked on very tight budgets, and so if you had something like Space 1999 come in that was syndicated, it was a real treat.
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough to at least live in an area where I could do that in Northeast Ohio. So I had access to Speed Racer, and I had access to a majority of the Jerry Anderson shows. In fact, for me, big fan of UFO. I also liked a live action cop series called The Protectors. That was his show with Robert Vaughn. And but for me, Space 1999 was it. I mean, that they were just the look of the show, the way it was written, the actors, everything. It was just like, wow, this is just the coolest. And of course, the Eagle, which is one of the coolest ships in science
Brian
fiction.
Johnson was
go ahead.
Brian Johnson, their props guy, was he was unbelievable. In fact, I think that he worked on the first Star Wars movie. There was a lot of groundbreaking miniatures and special effects stuff that him and his team came up with that for a long time until they found cheaper and easier or CGI ways to do it. That the Space 1999, the stuff looked probable, like the Eagle, the spaceship that everybody that watched the show just loved. That spaceship, it looked like something that was, like I could see that being a real thing.
Again, I was disappointed when I found out that we weren't going to have anything like that, even though it looked like something that NASA could go out right now and just build and make possible. Just do it. Man, yeah. That's an IP right there that could easily be brought back with some new actors. Have a lot of fun with. I mean, that would just be so much fun to see Space 1999 back. Of course, you couldn't call it Space 1999. You'd probably have to go with Moon Base Alpha.
Unless you did like a sci-fi period piece, which not that wouldn't be cool still, but you'd be Space 2099 at this point. But it would be fun. if done right.
Yeah. You've done right. Yes. Yes. Oh, wow. So that's all of that. Now let's get back to the bat business. Look, I gotta say this. I said it at the top of the show. I'll continue to say it. There are very few comic book characters that can even come close to having any kind of success, the same level of success that you've had with Batman. Superman comes to mind for Batman. But Batman just rules. I mean, as I said at the top, you really can't beat the characters, the Rogues Gallery, which in my opinion is the best Rogues Gallery in comics.
Yeah.
I mean, no disrespect to even the Spider-Man fans, but just, oh, wow. And there's the thing about Batman that has to be understood is that there are a lot of, you could see a lot of the influences of other characters that they borrowed the idea for Batman for, or at least that came before Batman that Batman took.
Well, yeah. I mean, Bob Kane was not shy about piecemealing really good ideas from other people.
Mm-hmm. And you know, you could see bits of the Shadow there. You could see, of course, you could also see the Phantom. You could see, which personally, that is the character that I believe that Bob Kane was envisioning, a character that was very much like the Phantom, given his idea for Batman's original mask and the costume that he had him in. But Wolverine, of course, you're right, 626, Zorro, but also Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
You know, that's where a lot of the villain stuff came from. Obvious nods to Dick Tracy in that one. Yep, we mentioned that too. Wolverine 626, the Shadow, which again, I wish they would take another. I wish somebody would just basically try to bring that one back too. I liked the 90s movie. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a perfect adaptation of the Shadow, but I liked it.
None of the 90s movies that followed the success of Batman were, you know, great movies. They're enjoyable movies. I really enjoyed Dick Tracy. I liked the Shadow. I really liked the Shadow. Even Billy Zane's Phantom. You know, they were all enjoyable, but you know, you've got the problem of that you always have with these things of getting people involved in the production of it that either A, don't know the character at all, or B, don't really have the proper, you know, in-depth understanding of the character. They don't bring on the right people that can show run and say like, no, you can't do this because, you know, that's not how the character is, or yeah, this is in the right direction. Let's go further with that.
Mm-hmm. It's
Dick Tracy killing, and that was something in the 90s that drove me nuts. Was to take the villains and kill them off by the end of every single movie, or in the case of Dick Tracy, kill them all off in the first act of the movie.
Yeah, I never understood that.
Yeah.
I mean, that almost guaranteed that you wouldn't be able to make a sequel very easy.
Well, where do you go from that? You've gotten rid of all the bad guys.
Yeah. I never understood that. Now, I did really enjoy The Rocketeer.
Oh, well, Dave Stevens had some input in that. Despite
Yeah.
Disney meddling, that was that was salvaged out to be a great adaptation that suffered from Disney not knowing what they had, not knowing how to market it, and what to do with the property. It was fantastic. It was fantastic because Stevens had so much input in it. The fact that
Joe
we got
Johnston.
it at all, is great.
But you also had someone like Joe Johnston, who was the director.
Yes, yeah.
And who was the guy who also directed Captain America: The First Avenger. So you could understand why they went out and got him for Captain America after seeing The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
But that film was just well done. And I totally get the fact that they couldn't do an exact adaptation of the comic because of all the different rights issues involved in the comic, where Dave Stevens, when he originally made it, he never really thought that anybody would be able to adapt this. He was just doing it to do it. He was making the comic as something that he wouldn't mind reading himself. And so
he did it out of an act of love, just for the genre. He liked that era. He liked he liked what he was doing, and it was a nice pet project. It wasn't somebody saying like, "Hey, this is the character we want you to make. Here's what we want you to do with it." It was something that he had just abject freedom in doing. When you can put your heart and soul into a project, you can really make it a lot of fun.
And if you take all the things that you really love, he was a big Betty Page fan, and he was a fan of a lot of the pulp heroes, especially Doc Savage.
Yeah. Well, they were in the Rocketeer comic, for Petey's sake.
Yes.
I mean, they were, everything that he loved was there. Even in some of the sequel comics, we had hints that he was interacting with the Shadow. So he loved that era, and getting that director on who seems to understand that period of time with like Captain America: First Avengers. That makes a lot of difference when you've got somebody that understands what they're doing and enjoys what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's not something that you often have nowadays, especially from Disney. And in the case of again, what we were talking about is a lot of these 90s films, that's two, because The Rocketeer, it was Dick Tracy and The Rocketeer both are connected to Disney. And I just felt that both films were good films. They weren't great films. Right. And The Shadow just had a lot of potential. I just wish somebody would, do something with those particular characters. But I'm also glad that we can at least more often than not get decent versions of Batman, as an example. Although, again, I don't know how you feel. I'm just not the biggest fan of the film The Batman. I don't hate it. I'm just not the biggest fan of it.
Well,
oh no, you're in denial. You hate that shit.
Wow. Okay. Calling me out on my own show. Yes. There's a lot of problems with that film. That film has a lot of problems, even though the director likes to try to pass himself off as a Batman fan, which again, I don't see that with that movie. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing it. Hey, it's Anima. Hello, Anima. But, I don't see that with that movie. What I see is a J.J. Abrams acolyte doing what J.J. acolytes do best, and basically doing a lot of stuff that makes you scratch your head and go, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Wolverine. Okay. Even Wolverine's in on this. Okay. Yes. Yes. I do. I call it Dumb 7 because it is Dumb 7. It's a dumb version of the movie 7. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. You're not
Peter
wrong.
Mickman fan site. Hey, how's it going? You know what? I have been known to be wrong. It's just I have a particular feeling about this movie, which is if you're gonna make a big deal out of saying how much of a fan you are of Batman, and then you start adding in little things to sort of poke fun at the last guy or the last people who had Batman in live action, acting like you're gonna try to be better than what they had, you better deliver. And I don't think that film delivered. I'm sorry, it didn't deliver in my mind at all. The script was not solid. It needed at least another 2 or 3 passes. You know, it wasn't a bad script, but it was far from perfect. I've complained about it on this show before, but it's just Dumb 7 is just not the movie that I think they were aiming for. And I've said before, they should have just gone with Professor Pig rather than just turn the Riddler into a serial killer. That's it. I know, I can tell from that every time, Mike.
You're wearing me out, man. It's like 11:30, and I'm exhausted at this point. I have a certain like of this character and the history of it. So when I see it mistreated, it's exhausting to me.
I'm sorry if this is like a wound that I am just
It is, man. It's like something that won't heal.
And then look, I know people that are just this is their movie. I know people that just love this movie.
You know what? That's
why.
okay.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. If you love this film, love it all you want.
Mm-hmm.
I got nothing bad to say about the cast. It's actually a really good cast. I love the cast for this film. I just wish the script were better. I just really wanted a better script. And this script is trash.
Well, Keith, you know me, and I'm probably solidly in the minority of this, but I am still butthurt over Affleck's short run as Batman. I think a good grounded detective story with his character. So here's the deal. A lot of people like why do you like Affleck? What's the big deal with Affleck? A lot of this depends to me about like the actor themselves. How do they like the character? Do they enjoy what they're doing? And Affleck loved that character when he was doing Daredevil. It was just like, well, I'll never get to play a Batman character on screen, which was, anti-prophetic statement. But so he did Daredevil. He thought, well, I like Daredevil, and this is as close to Batman as I'll get. And even George Clooney, which that movie riddled with issues, he really, really, really wanted to play that character. Not because, hey, that's a good money grab, but he really liked the character. I cannot find a YouTube clip of it, but Val Kilmer, when they were doing Batman Forever, was on a talk show, and I don't know if it was Carson or Letterman, who it was, but and I'm going to paraphrase greatly here, but they asked him about the movie because he was, promoting it. And they asked, hey, you get to be Batman, that's pretty cool. You're pretty excited about that. And he said, and I'm greatly paraphrasing, but the intent is here. He's like, well, it's not really what I want to be doing with my career right now, but the money was a good offer. And so it was just like that burned my ass when I heard that. I went into that movie with vitriol. From hearing that, I have seen that movie all the way through one time in the theater because I'm so salty about his stance on that character. Whereas I can sit down and maybe have a couple of drinks and sort of kind of enjoy Batman and Robin, because I know that Clooney's there working his ass to do something that he really wanted to make good. And the same thing with Affleck. I don't agree with everything in the Batman versus Superman, and the final direction that they were going to go with either version of Justice League. But I knew that the people that were up there working their asses and playing the parts all really enjoyed what they were doing and were excited to be playing the characters that they were playing. And to me, there's a lot of heart that goes behind a movie that makes me enjoy it a lot more than something that's just necessarily really cool eye candy. I can take a movie with a lot of warts and a lot of scars and enjoy the hell out of it, because I know that there's a good solid heart behind it, versus just a lot of flash, not referencing the movie, which I still, parts of that I do enjoy. The first act is rough, but that being said, to me that's where a lot of the fault comes. The Nolan movies, kind of like the Batman, the Nolan movies, they were good movies. They weren't Batman movies, because they took the route of being too grounded with them. It's a superhero movie, have superhero stuff in it. I don't know how you can walk away from that and have it make any sense in your head.
Wow.
So I'm done ranting for a minute. Just
that's
I'll
all
wait
right.
till you get me stirred up again.
I mean, given how you feel about that, I mean, I will say this. I will say this. Hollywood really has had a very close relationship with a lot of the DC characters. I mean, really, if you really think about it, for both Superman and Batman, Hollywood has pretty much just been there. And so it's hard to differentiate a lot of what is in the comics from a lot of what Hollywood has placed in their films. I mean, again, Batman 1939, and he's in his first movie by 1943, played by Lewis Wilson, who is the father of one of the main James Bond producers, Michael Wilson. That's his dad. And so Michael G. Wilson, I should say. Again, well, let me ask you this, Michael. What is your personal view on all the actors that have played Batman? Starting with, Lewis Wilson.
Well, I'm embarrassed that the actor that was in the second serial, his name escapes me for some reason all of a sudden. You had a property that was really, really new. Like you said, Batman had been on the streets for all of 3-4 years when they went into production with that serial. So he was obviously a very popular character, but there was the history of the character wasn't there, and of course these serials were shot on ridiculously low budgets. They were filler pieces for the main attraction movies, so they were meant to be shot cheaply and quickly. So that's the first couple of actors. That's really tough to pin. Because I doubt that Lewis Wilson even picked up a copy of Batman or Detective Comics. Maybe towards when he got in the part, he was like, I guess I ought to figure out what this character is. And the scripts had little to nothing to do with what was going on in the Batman and Detective Comics at that time. So I enjoy them for what they were. It was nice that the ground was broken to get the character on screen. And then it was made it more wide to the public. And I think that's part of what helped get the character started was, with Superman and with Batman, you had a generation of people that maybe were introduced to that character that had never picked up, a funny book as they were back then.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, with the first film, Lewis Wilson, Douglas Croft, that was 1943, and they wouldn't have another movie for 6 years.
Yeah.
So 1949, that was, first film was called Batman. Second film was called Batman and Robin.
Yes.
And that one was with Kansas City actor Robert Lowry and Johnny Duncan, who the reason why I remember all of that is that I had the opportunity, like you did, to meet Johnny Duncan a few years back.
Yeah, several years ago, but that was really cool, and I to this day kick myself for not picking up a photo of him and having him sign it. So, bad on me for missing that opportunity that I had literally just sitting in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I got mine someplace. It's someplace in my major inner sanctum collection, in a place of honor, because it's rare that you get a chance to meet someone with that kind of background. As far, I mean, playing Robin is great, being one of the originators of that role on the big screen.
Yeah.
But for what his career was like just before and just after that film, being one of the founding members of the Dead End Kids, but also going into a career that he was able to officially end on screen with the movie Spartacus. And if you gotta go, if you gotta at least make one last movie, that was the movie to do it on.
Yeah, if you wanted to quit on a high note, he certainly picked the right one.
And listening to his stories about, because that's really, I have to admit, as much of a Batman fan as I was and still am, I ended up asking him more questions about what it was like to make the movie Spartacus, because that one was just that. I mean, the cat, for all of you out there, I say Spartacus, and you're probably thinking of the television series from the people behind the Evil Dead films. But this was, the movie Spartacus was just, that film was just amazing. That cast was just amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean,
they spared no expense with getting the right actors in that movie. That's for sure.
Oh, wow. I mean, I still, to this day, I don't regret doing that, because that is such an iconic film. And again, I was thoroughly entertained by the few stories that he was able to relate to me, and I'm very grateful that he gave me that kind of time. But Batman and Robin and Robert Lowry, I'll skip over that because, again, there are a lot of people who aren't fans of that stuff. I continue to be, and I continue to talk about these names because while the Superman stuff is memorable because of all the actors that were part of it, the way I look at it is it's not right to allow all of the Superman actors room to do what they do and to be recognized, and not do that with the Batman actors. And again, this is not anything against any particular actor, but as much as I love Adam West, he is the third actor to be Batman. For many people, he's their first Batman, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is he was actually the third actor to have actually played the role. And he was very animated. He had a lot of fun doing it. But I also think that at the same time, in later years, especially about 1989, I think he was getting jealous of Michael Keaton a little bit. Some of his interviews were about the new film were really a little over the top, and I don't mean in the good way.
Right. Well, I think a portion of that problem was when they had entertained the idea of having some cameos. Bob Kane was supposed to cameo on Keaton's Batman, and his health was not great at the time. So you get to see that drawing of the bat creature in the pinstripe suit that they have at the newspaper office there. But when the idea was floated to maybe have Burt Ward and Yvonne Craig and Adam West do some cameos, they were told that those people are strictly to be nowhere near even the filming locations of this going on, because we do not want any sort of connection with the old, jokey, campy series, which I understand that, but I don't necessarily agree with that. So I think some of the vitriol that he had in his heart stemmed from knowing that not only did he not to get to be on it, but he was specifically excluded from being attached to it.
Yeah, versus how you look at, say, Richard Donner's Superman.
Yeah,
that was, they ended up having, in my opinion, probably the greatest Easter egg.
Yeah.
In a movie like that, where you have the original Clark Kent and the original Lois Lane on screen together in the movie, playing roles that were actually incredibly significant if you understood the story and read the novelization. They didn't go out of their way to say anything, but giving them the roles that they did and having them be Lois Lane's parents was really cool.
When you find that out, later when you figure it out or whatever, it's just like, oh my God, that's perfect, because it was so subtle, and and no disrespect whatsoever, but it's not like the previous Marvel movies where the movie's going along and Stan Lee walks on screen and slaps you upside of the head. They're like, hey folks, I'm Stan Lee.
I just think that I too have my problems. I mean, I still think that I'm salty a little bit about Captain America, the First Avenger, because Joe Simon was still alive. He could have very easily have cameoed in that film. Not. I mean, again, nothing against Stan Lee, but Stan Lee had absolutely nothing to do with Captain America.
Can we be a little against Stan Lee? Is it okay to be a little against him? Or should I just kind of keep my mouth shut and just deal with Batman vitriol right now? I'm good either way, man. It's your show. You tell me what you want.
I do have a soft spot for Stan Lee. I just don't.
Okay.
I just didn't like the way that Jack got treated, and in that particular instance, I didn't like the way that Sam got treated.
Yeah.
Because Stan really had absolutely nothing to do with that character. That character was already established, by Jack and Joe, without Stan Lee having anything to do with it at all.
Yeah, that's not even a question of like, well, how much input did he really have in Spider-Man or Doctor Strange or whomever? He had less than zero input with Captain America, and he certainly did not correct the record when he was attached to it.
It would have been very easy to have Joe Simon, even just a picture of Jack and Joe, even at the recruitment office or something, and they didn't even do that.
Anything.
They didn't even do that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, again, it's just.
This is a whole nother episode that we can do sometime. So,
well, to be fair, those guys are on my mind because yesterday was Jack Kirby's 108th birthday.
Yes.
And that shows you. Because I don't think Marvel said anything. I don't even think.
Not that I saw online. I don't think there was any mention.
Any acknowledgement, nothing.
No.
And again, for those of you, I get there's quite a few people out there that when you say Marvel Comics, all you think is Stan Lee. All I can say is there are a couple books out there that you need to read about the full history of Marvel Comics and the people that were actually the talent behind that. I will always give Stan Lee recognition for being an inventive guy.
Mm-hmm.
For
It was a great idea, man.
Great idea, man. He came up with some stuff that was really kind of cool, but he wasn't the only talent. And in the case of Joe and Jack, those two guys trained Stan. That is not an opinion. That's a fact.
That's fact. Yeah.
When
Stan, DC Comics, they didn't have many mention of Kirby either, because I mean, look how much input he had into DC. I mean, you wouldn't have Darkseid and the New Gods without Jack.
I mean, the New Gods, the Forever People, what he was able to do with the Newsboy Legion, with Project Cadmus, with really the Challengers of the Unknown, which in my opinion was the precursor to Fantastic Four.
Yep.
And again, Jack. And I just think that if you are a comic book fan, period, and you don't understand or have any knowledge of who Jack Kirby really was, you should do a deep dive on this guy and how talented.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor and educate yourself on Jack Kirby if you don't know much about him other than the name.
And Wolverine, you're right. The character Dan Turpin in Superman the Animated Series is modeled on Kirby. To me, that one move there, still better than anything I've seen out of any of the animated Marvel stuff that they've done. I've not seen any representations of Jack anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that DC was any better with its creators. In fact, both Marvel and DC did equal amounts of good and bad with a lot of the people that work for them. I know some people that like to, you know, they will out one side of their mouth, they'll curse Bob Kane, and out the other side, praise Stan Lee. And it makes me laugh because it's like, yeah, you're not exactly, you know, you may curse Bob Kane, and again, that guy did some bad stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
Well, Kane honestly was, for the most part, for the larger audience, he was a one-trick pony with Batman. Whereas Stan Lee, you know, he was editor-in-chief and then became the mascot spokesperson for Marvel. So Stan had a lot more screen time than Kane ever did, and Stan was involved in a lot more stuff than Kane ever was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's natural that people would know Stan for a lot of the good stuff that he did do, which like I said, I think Stan was a great guy. I do, but let's if we're going to point fingers, let's point fingers equally.
Yeah, there's no way you can get past a lot of this stuff, especially as to why Jack and Joe had a falling out with Stan.
Yeah.
And why Stan thought it was important when he got control of Marvel to bring it back at the beginning of the 60s, and why he felt it was important to have Jack, and how he had to basically eat crow and get Jack back on board before he would have a chance at having any success with Marvel Comics. And again, that's one of those times where it shows you that Stan, for all of whatever problems he had, he was at least smart enough to understand talent and understand what your odds of success would be without talent.
Mhm.
And to me, I believe that if you're gonna mention Stan, you've got to at least mention Jack, at least when it comes to Marvel in the 1960s. Because Jack did a lot of
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
starting
Well,
with Fantastic Four.
yeah. Well, like Superman, you've got it. You don't divorce yourself from either guy. You know, Siegel and Schuster. Um, that was the dynamic. That was the pair that made that character. And there's a lot of other characters out there that should have that automatic association that do not. The majority of them, in fact.
Yeah, and again, that's you're right. When it comes to getting back to Batman, Bob Kane was definitely a one-trick pony because Siegel and Schuster came up. They had created characters before Superman,
Mm-hmm.
and then had a few characters after Superman. So it wasn't like they only did just one thing.
Right.
Whereas Bob Kane, you know, he had the basic idea, and it took Bill Finger to take what that idea was and actually turn it into something viable, or turn it into something that eventually became, well, that was the basis for everything that came after. And,
Well, Kane knew how to make money off of that good idea that he had. He knew how to, not merchandising or anything that, but you know, he basically had his in-house crew that was just under the auspice of, they were Bob Kane as an entity. So he had the newspaper strips. You know, will forever be attached to every project that will ever be Batman.
yeah,
You don't get that with, as far as I know, you don't get that with any other hero, just other than just casual attachment, like Stan Lee. Oh yeah, Stan Lee, Fantastic Four. Whomever. Where Bob Kane is legally attached to the character and will be, forever.
yeah. And again, I just think that Bill Finger definitely, I've said before in this show, and I'll say it again. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to crediting, in my opinion, it should always read Batman created by Bill Finger based on an original idea by Bob Kane.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly the way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Kane's idea was crap. His original idea for Batman was just...
Well, it was just another masked pulp, detective character, kind of.
Yeah.
He had his source materials that he drew off of, and kind of mismatched them into something that was rudimentary, coherent, and then
rudimentary.
Finger,
That's the word.
and people that followed Finger, Jerry Robinson and others that came in. Dick Sprang, as far as the art and such, that came in and really, really, really fleshed that character out.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. And you're right, Wolverine 626. That is a incredible documentary.
Yeah.
Batman and Bill. If you've never seen it, you should. In fact, as soon as this show's over, a lot of you out there who have never seen that documentary, I think it's a Hulu documentary. It was shown on Hulu. I think you can find it other places. But you need to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that you see in that film, what happened with Bill Finger, happened to a lot of people, especially a lot of Marvel people, under Stan Lee. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Not pointing any fingers, just saying that happened a lot.
Yeah, Bill was not unique. It was just, it's because of the cultural and financial success of the character of Batman that it's more prominent, because it was the one character. Whereas, with others, there were many, many more characters involved. So it gets diluted. a lot. Whereas with the Batman character, there would not be one without Bill Finger, obviously. It's easier to like I said before with Kane. There's a lot of there's a lot of ugliness that goes on behind the scenes with the Kane and his workhouse.
Well,
But it's because it was just the one character that it's more prominently known.
Let me also say this. It is because of another creator from that time period, or at least someone that had access to those people, that I learned, and I informed Gary about this 2 years ago, a series of tweets at that time, was still known as Twitter, that revealed the whole thing about another creator who actually trained Bill Finger to do what he did. Bill Finger and everything he did was learned from another creator. And this other creator was someone who worked with basically everybody in the business, whether they were DC, Marvel, or even for other companies. At one time, a lot of people worked for this guy. And they knew enough about this guy to know that he was never really straight with people. Unfortunately, they named an award that is still around to this day. But his ability to creatively not treat people very well is legendary.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Oh, it's Brandon, the anime guy. Hello, Brandon. I will say there was a time in my life where I actually kind of looked up to this guy until I found out that he really is the source of a lot of the tricks that were perfected by other people in order to get people to contribute in terms of writing, artwork, and others, and still not bring themselves to fully financially be as forthcoming as they should have been, given the amount of work that was done for them. And Bob Kane took all of what he learned at this guy's side and used it when it came time for him and the character of Batman. So in that respect, I can't run away, because I did say this in another show. Look, if you believe in an afterlife, I'm just saying Bob Kane had an opportunity to make some changes, but he never said anything while he was on this side of life. So, if it wasn't for the fact of how Bill Finger died, what his status was when he passed away, because that's the part that really is disgusting for me personally. You have every opportunity in the world to make amends as long as someone's still alive. But for someone to have co-created a character like this and do it basically penniless, destitute, there's no reason why anybody should have to die like that.
Yeah. And as far as I'm aware, the only mention that Kane ever had there's maybe a hint of genuine regret, although I'm not too sure how genuine it was, is in Kane's autobiography, when he basically Bill had a lot of input in this, and I probably should have done more while he was still around. But that's easy to say after the guy's gone. A lot of that, make yourself look better.
A lot of that is some of the same terminology and words that Stan Lee used.
Yeah.
It is, again, there has to come a point where if you believe in truth and honesty and all the stuff that you put in your comics, how you raise generations of kids to believe in what they believe, if you can't bring yourself to at least try to practice doing that as a human being, it takes what you were trying to do and just lessens it a little bit. That's my feeling on it. Bob Kane made a lot of money.
Yeah.
but
his deal was lucrative.
yeah, there was just no reason for anybody to die like that.
No.
So him feeling bad about it years later, it's great to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, you accidentally shoot somebody and they're dead. I mean, you can feel bad about it, but that person's still dead.
Yeah, you still pulled the trigger.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he actually killed Bill Finger. I'm just saying there's no reason for Bill Finger to at least have died like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Siegel and Schuster, before Neil Adams decided to lead the charge and try to get some recognition and compensation for the families of those guys that built superheroes. Like the Phantom, the Shadow. I get that, but as far as actual superheroes, you got the two guys that are the daddies of the whole genre, and they're making chump money and getting like little recognition whatsoever. And Adams came in and said, like, this isn't right. I wish that he had been able to champion Finger and gotten him the accolades that he should have had, before it was all done. But Neil Adams, he's of course he's no longer with us, but he did a lot to try to make things right. I mean, he even goes up against his own bosses. That he's like, they're telling him, like, hey, just drop it, and he's like, no, I'm not going to drop it.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to him.
Well, it's right and wrong. It is old fashioned right and wrong. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And if you think you can live with it, then you make whatever choices you have to make. But there are a lot of people who were just mistreated. Some of them that work for DC. And I know this kills a lot of people when I say it. Some of them that work for Marvel, And then you had Jack Kirby, who worked for both, Brandon, the anime guy, thoughts on Kingdom Come? Okay, as an aside, Kingdom Come is a great comic. If you're not that familiar with it and you're just starting out for something, it's a little. There's a lot there.
It's heavy.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna read Kingdom Come, I would plead that you also attempt the book Marvels at the same time.
Yes.
So, but as far as Slasher Fred says, I think that Batman represents the darkness in all of us, because the costume that Bruce Wayne wears is to cope with the loss of his family, since they were killed right in front of him. And you know what? You're right. I believe the same thing. But I also am a big fan of, over the years, the irony that for someone who believed he was alone in the fight, he has built a makeshift family.
Oh, it's huge. It's awesome.
It is an incredible.
And he denies it time after time. Great.
Yes, he does. And this is what I hope James Gunn wants to adapt, because Hollywood has run away from doing it. It's almost like they're adverse to giving him partners. You were going to say, Martin?
Yeah. Oh my. How can I put this? I tend to like James Gunn's work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't love it, because he's one of those guys that needs to be restrained.
Yes.
Because when you leave it on his own, oh my God, he goes overboard. And Guardian of the Galaxy 2 is the only thing that I have to say about that. But I cannot, for the life of me, seeing him doing a serious story. I like his humor, I do,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't
disagree with that.
serious
Yeah.
story. maybe he surprises us with his Superman movie, maybe.
Mhm.
But I'm on the fence. So giving him a pure Batman story, or even Kingdom Come, please God, never let anybody do it.
I just
Kingdom
don't
Come
know
to
how
the
you could
screen.
take Kingdom Come and do the the Marvel method of movie making where it's just like tragedy. Hey, how about a one-liner joke? Okay, back to the tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, please, no.
I don't think Warner Brothers could sit through that. I don't think anybody could. In fact, there is
After that, what the fuck?
Wow, Gap. No, my thing is this. I don't think they would ever truly attempt it, because if they attempt it and don't do it right, then one of the criticisms, and it would be a valid criticism, is that they should have gone out to get someone that could do something like that. And there's only one director that I could think of that could do Kingdom Come. Only one.
That is.
He's already worked with DC characters before. And Ben Affleck could testify to how good he is. And that's Zack Snyder. You know,
What?
you can hate him for a
well,
lot of
yeah,
things, but Zack Snyder is near perfect, because when you give him
Yeah,
a
if the
story that
material,
already has a beginning, middle, and an end, he can direct the heck out of that thing.
If
you try
Snyder
to-
has reins put on him,
Yes,
and is
that's
not
what I mean.
allowed to just run, he's very competent.
Yeah.
But when he's given too much freedom, it's too much Zack Snyder
Well,
in the movie.
Again, I point to Watchmen.
Yeah, Watchmen and 300.
Yes, I think you give him something like Kingdom Come, he could do it. He could pull Kingdom Come off. Okay, but would he be allowed to? Okay, there's very look. I can't think of any. I mean, outside of Zack Snyder, maybe Peter Jackson, but I don't know if Peter Jackson can handle something like that. You
I don't
know,
know.
Peter Jackson.
I don't think that's really in his wheelhouse. Everybody's got their areas of expertise, and I don't see that with Jackson, because obviously the Lord of the Rings is a triumph. The Hobbit had its issues. He didn't even want to direct The Hobbit, and was forced into it, and then forced into 3 movies, because of everybody needed a piece of that pie because of the all the legalities of making the first movie. You had 5 people in play that had to be paid, and so the studio had to make a second, and then they decided, like, well, if we get to make a second and keep the money, why not stretch this out into a third? So
that's great.
Different topic. I don't want to get into that right now, but
Yeah.
I don't see Jackson as being a superhero director.
No, and there's not too many that I would personally trust with a story the size of Kingdom Come, because you have to balance all of these characters out. I mean, really, Injustice has been borrowing a lot from Kingdom Come, and a lot of other stories have.
Yeah,
you'd have to show a little bit of restraint not to include some of the things that they've thrown out there into all these other stories that have been taken from Kingdom Come. But to bring this all back to what I had pointed to before, it really does, in my opinion, everybody's done their version of the lone protector of Batman. It's about time that we see how they can do something with other characters. It's time to have Richard and Tim and Barbara and even Damian to a certain
Thank you.
And Ace the Bat Hound, goddammit.
Oh yeah, Ace, because I love in the comics how Damian attaches himself to Ace. They become like their own little, at least in the house, it's a boy and his dog. And I love that. And it's just something not right if you're not gonna have the Bat family. And that's just the beginning of the Bat family. I'm not even talking about, I'm still surprised that you can have a movie like The Batman and not really even. I mean, I don't remember Lucius Fox being in the movie. And that to me is one of the weird things about Tim Burton's movie that I have to, at least if I'm out there saying, okay, there are good things, bad things, one of my things against Tim Burton's film is the fact that Lucius Fox had been around as a character for almost 11 years by the time Tim Burton's movie came out.
Well, the Joker asked the same damn thing. Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Yeah. And so you have an actor involved with the movie, Billy D. Williams, who was a fan of the Batman television series. He enjoyed the character. He wanted the opportunity to, as a man of color, to be a part of that. And to, again, I don't blame him. He's, by the time the movie came out, he was a man well into his, his life. It's not like he had actually picked up a comic within the last 10 years. So he didn't have any idea that Lucius Fox existed. I think if he had been informed that there was this character and they had made way for that character, he could have originated the character on screen. Especially given the fact that the real reason why he wanted to play Two-Face was that he just wanted to play a part in the movie. He wanted an opportunity to have a lot more screen time and be connected to this property. Being Lucius Fox would have allowed him to be in all the movies that came in thereafter. Mm-hmm. And so he was never made aware. He wasn't really made aware of that. And this is one of those instances where the Hollywood people really dropped the ball. Yeah. Because you have to know something about the character. And Lucius Fox, in my opinion, is not some recent thing. He's earned his way into the Bat family. He and his son and really a lot of characters have. So it's as you said before, it's a nice sized group of characters. And there's a lot of, my big thing when you adapt something is that once you start doing your own thing and changing things, it isn't just changing characters. You are now undoing the opportunities for certain storylines. There are more than enough stories in comics to cover any situation or any type of character that that anybody in Hollywood could ever come up with.
Yeah, well, so two great examples, and I've actually got a topic I don't want to talk about, but two great examples of just doing the most with the characters that you have on hand that are just not limitless, but God, there's a lot of them. Is Batman the Animated Series. I mean, how many different villains and antagonists did we have on that? And a better example, actually, is Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yeah,
They specialized in taking obscure characters and putting them in that show. So it's not like there's not a wealth of history to draw off of. We don't necessarily need to have the Joker or Two-Face or whomever in every single incarnation of Batman, because there's a lot of good stuff there. The right guy, the right writer, right director could really take an obscure character and do something really marvelous with them.
Oh yeah, and It really, as a Batman fan, it kind of hurts because you think about how long, again, as I said before, you think the first Batman movie was 1943. Mm-hmm. So Hollywood has been doing this character for quite a long time, and it still hasn't found a way of trying to get as close as it could to the way that the comics are. And realistically, when you think of live action films, for the number of characters that exist within the Batman IP, it's just amazing to me how few have actually made the translation or transition to live action. Outside of Batman, Alfred, Commissioner Gordon, and depending on, what era you're talking about, maybe, Richard Grayson, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
you know. And as far as villains, they mainly stay stuck on, Joker.
Well, your big four, Catwoman,
Yeah.
Joker, Penguin, and Riddler.
And they just stay on those, and that's what creates kind of like this feeling like, oh, we've seen it all before.
Because we're not allowed to have any of the others.
It's just sad, and there's so much more that can be gained if you're willing to explore. Batman the Brave and the Bold I like because it was basically bringing Dick Springs' version of Batman to life.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Which to me, it needs to be understood that really is all what the 60s Batman series actually was. It was a live action version of Dick Springs' version of Batman. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's no harder than that. This is not rocket science. It's actually relatively simple. The entire television show built around the way the comics that were being published 10 years before the show came out. If you look
that's the thing too, is when the show came out, the comics had already started to make the change in '64, where they were getting more serious. So the Adam West Batman series, they drew off of the old the old stuff, where Batman was, we didn't see this in the Adam West show, obviously, but, Batman was the last issue before the big change. Batman and Robin had been captured by aliens and put into a space zoo. So that's where that comic had gotten. And the comic was in really, really just a razor's edge of not only getting canceled, but the intent was we're going to kill that character off.
Yeah.
And then we think the Lord had the revamp and in '64, and that's when we got the yellow oval, because that was part of the wanting to trademark that imagery, because when they went to the trademark office, they said, we want to trademark this like we've done the Superman shield, and they said, you can't trademark the silhouette of a bat. And they're like, well, what if we put a yellow oval around it? And the trademark office said, yeah, that's fine, we'll do that. So that's where that yellow oval came from. It's been put into the stories now in a lot of stories where there's an armored plate behind it. There's a reason, it's a target. That's all well and good, but the reality of it was so they could make some money, some more money off of that character. So it was desperately close to not just having that series canceled. It's happened to many characters have their comic books canceled and then come back and revive. But we were going to lose the character proper. I think that's part of when they were doing a lot of the Justice. I cannot remember the name of the damn comic. Not the Justice Society, but the younger heroes that followed up after. They did a great storyline where Batman had been killed off. So I think that was kind of a nod to that decision that never was completely acted upon. Because in Earth 2, Batman's not around.
Well, and it was smart to actually put together a team starting with Denny O'Neil.
Yes.
And that led to he teaming up with Neil Adams. And the two of them would just go on to not only revive the character.
That was a 180. I mean, it was just the covers of those two comics where they made the change. They're just that the covers alone tell you everything you need to know about the direction of those comics. Those guys alone did such an incredible job with that character. Yeah, it was almost like they had reinvented the character, and definitely should be listed on as almost creators, because they created so much stuff. In the aftermath. It was a lot like the run of Amazing Fantasy. It was a series they were going to cancel. It wasn't doing that well. Batman wasn't making any money. Hey, if you guys want to take a shot at it, we'll do a couple of issues and see how it goes. Then it just boom.
So to anybody else out there, if you're thinking about getting into Batman, or you're someone who Hollywood has been your main teacher, but you've never picked up a comic, there are comics that you can pick up. There are runs that you could make. There are, I mean, on the one hand, you could do it by decade. You know, you could pick out a couple comics per every decade, or you could try to focus in on just, you know, what is the decade for the character. I'm very biased. I am extremely biased when it comes to the comics and people picking up Batman for the first time. In my opinion, it all starts with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams.
Absolutely.
Because
you can ignore everything before that. And
as much as I enjoy everybody that came before, and I enjoy the heck out of everybody, it all starts with those two, because without them, Christopher Nolan pretty much wouldn't have had anything to do for 3 films. That's how much they took from those guys. He took a lot of material for all 3 movies came from those guys.
Yeah.
And
it's entirely possible we wouldn't have the character without those guys.
It's amazing to me how many people don't know who Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil were, and how important they were.
Yeah.
Not only just to Batman, but to a lot of characters. Their combined run on Green Lantern, Green Arrow alone is really how you should handle those characters. I just think that again, with Batman, if it's those 2 guys, start at the beginning.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this before. I know when we bump into each other at conventions and stuff that we occupy the better part of the day just hanging out and talking. I have this theory with the animated series that I want to throw at you and see what you think. So
Sure.
You know, of course, the origin story of Batman is, you know, they've just seen the Mark of Zorro. They're going down the alley, which would later be known as Crime Alley. The Waynes are murdered. Boom, boom, boom. So, in some interpretations of it, it's Joe Chill. In other interpretations, it's a nameless gunman. Okay, so that's neither here nor there. I think the original interpretation was that they were both shot. They softened that up later on because it's like, oh God, killing a woman, that's just kind of harsh. So what they did was when Thomas Wayne was shot, Martha Wayne had a congenital weak heart. And the shock of seeing her husband gunned down, she had a heart attack and died right on the spot. So that origin being taken into account, the follow-up to Batman, the animated series, Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Batman retires because he's facing some thugs and he starts to have a heart attack. And he picks up the gun and you know threatens the punk with it, and then they run off and realizes, my God, I've picked up the one thing that made me what I am today, and walks away from the Batsuit, walks away from Batman, walks away from everything entirely. And then later on, even he goes to help Terry McGinnis out, the current Batman, and he puts on this mecha Batsuit, which he knows he cannot wear because it's extremely hard on his system and could just blow his heart out. So my theory is that's, in my head, that's canon, where Martha Wayne died because of a massive heart attack. Bruce Wayne has that condition, which later in life, in his 50s or 60s or whenever, that's what forces him to quit. So,
yeah, I like that. I mean, that's a great. I love that. Hold on for just a moment. It's my youngest brother. Hello, G. Thanks for checking in. You know what? I like that. I I would enjoy that rather than what they did for the movie Dumb 7, where Bruce is surprised that his mom had mental issues and was taking medication.
The movie you still say you don't hate. Yeah.
Look, I love that cast. If somebody had given me that money and that same cast, I could have done wonders with that group. Oh man, but I will say this. I like their Catwoman, but I would have taken Catwoman out of the film. That whole storyline took away from what you were trying to build and having a brand new Batman. It was a distraction. It took away from the character development that you needed to build between Batman and Gordon. And you needed more time for the Riddler, Penguin, Batman, and Gordon. You barely saw anything with Alfred. So that's the sacrifice I would have made. I would have just gotten rid of that whole storyline with Catwoman. I just would have gone with spending more time and character development on Batman and definitely on Gordon. We didn't see enough of the pressure that he's under. This is year 2. So it's not like everybody's accepting him. So Gordon trusts him. So we've obviously skipped over that whole thing. But now Gordon, one of the things that I think the filmmaker didn't really, anticipate, because I don't think he was as big a Batman fan as he told people, is that Gordon's under a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure being friends with Batman.
Absolutely.
That was not an easy
his whole
thing.
career with that.
Yeah. So, and you didn't really go into a lot of that. You saw him arguing with the chief of police and da-da-da-da-da. But, the story that they had set up is that all the cops hated Batman. Although they were magically able to transport Batman from the church to an police interrogation room, and nobody thought to take off the mask.
I don't think that's part of his Miranda rights.
Yeah.
Now,
Gotham.
Here's the thing.
Miranda rights.
We have the Batman, arguably a suspect of many, or a subject to many charges.
Mm-hmm.
He got knocked out by a freaking bomb that explodes in front of his
which
face.
should have killed him, probably.
Shouldn't they be taking him to a hospital instead of an interrogation room?
Because
that's the way you would think it would work.
His costume was made to basically just protect him during fights, not bombs. Okay? Yeah. He was close enough to have gotten seriously hurt. And
that's the real world representation of that. Is you've got your law enforcement that have their Kevlar and have their body armor, and then they run across a bomb and they go like, well, we need to call in the bomb squad, and these guys come in looking like they're ready to do some deep space exploration. Mm-hmm. It's a little difference between a 9mm and plastique.
Oh, Wolverine! Wait a minute, prequel novel? You mean this is another example where even in the prequel novel they didn't do a lot?
Yeah, that is dumb 6.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I tell you. But
so that brings up an interesting point where it's like, well, we need to have some female representation. When Gordon was out for a while, we had Essen in charge of the police department. You have the characters there. The characters already there. You don't need to make changes.
Yeah. Well, who is the character that not Christmas. What is his name? There's one detective that actually hates Batman in the comics. And I mean, he is not a Batman fan at all. And he's a black character. And you actually saw him in Justice League. He was actually in Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I turn to the director who also wrote the Batman and say, why did you skip over that character? You know, it's great that you want representation. It's great that you want to increase the number of females. It's great that you want to have racial representation, but you've got, and it's not Bullock. It's not Bullock.
No.
I want to say his name is Christmas or Holiday or something like that. But he's in the movie. He's in Justice League. He's the cop that comes up to Gordon and hands him the description of the mysterious figure that's been going and snatching people. Okay? That character is actually from the comics. That's the thing that you can definitely say about that Zack Snyder. He really did try to take from as many different sources. And when it came to really big characters, he adapted those characters. And that character, the significance of him doing that scene with Gordon, the two of them together, is it isn't just the fact that it's people describing Batman. That's part of who his character is. He takes every opportunity to go, hey, we got to go after Batman. Maybe Batman did it. Let's go after it. You know, he's constantly wanting to bust Batman, you know. But I guess that for me is another thing that drew me to the character, because it's a very diverse cast of characters, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different religions. It's all there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what really got me with that movie. You could have picked any time period to do. You didn't have to do year 2 of Batman, which again, as I've said before, the reason why he picked it was so that all of the stuff that he did that wasn't very good could be explained away by going, oh, that's not a mistake. He's just new.
Yeah.
Christmas Allen. Thank you, Wolverine 626. Christmas Allen. That's his name. And that character is a really good character to have in any adaptation. The very fact they couldn't even find a way of putting Christmas Allen into the Batman. The very fact that they couldn't find a way of putting Lucius Fox into the Batman. And the reasoning I heard was that, oh, that would have been too much like the Nolan movies. It's like, are you dumb? These are characters that Nolan didn't create. He just got them from the comics.
Yeah.
You know, Nolan took Fox from the comics the same way that Zack Snyder took Christmas Allen from the comics. You know, and that's what you get for hiring JJ people. That is their way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, it's all a part of this whole, well, we just want to be different. Or in this case, their ego gets the better of them rather than trying to make something good. I just think that, that movie could have been boss. If he were actually a real Batman fan, that movie should have just been awesome. And
can I say that I despise
Gotham.
I despise the idea of the gun that murdered Batman's parents being part of his costume.
Oh, geez, that is so bad.
Can I just? I don't want to belabor the point, but Kevin Smith, you're a dumbass. I swear to God, I love Batman. Well, you don't understand the character, apparently.
Oh,
Gotta Why don't you just have him wear the skulls of his parents on his shoulder pads or something? Good God. So stupid.
Yeah, you see a lot of these people. Look, you had it right before. It's a lot of ego. That's really what it comes down to. You make these changes out of ego more than anything else, and stupidity, or I'm sorry, ignorance. It's ego.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's stupidity. I think it's willful stupidity.
Yeah, these are the kinds of mistakes that if you were what you said you are, you wouldn't be making these kinds of mistakes. You wouldn't be making these kinds of changes because these characters, it's my same criticism to all the people that kept defending all the really bad X-Men films. There are a lot more than what people want to admit. You can't make changes. You can't just go, I want a character that does this. There's every type of mutant out there. You just pick up any X-Men book. You pick up 20, 30, 40 years of X-Men's comics. You could find a mutant that does X, Y, and Z. You want a mutant that can just float about. There's a mutant character you can find for that. Doesn't matter what you wanted to do. They're all in there. If you just bothered to read, you find what you need. But that goes for any comic character. Anyone. If the character has been around more than 20 years, chances are you can find whatever you're thinking of has already been done. You just got to use what's there. And to not do it pretty much tells me that you aren't who you say or you want people to believe you are.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that clear. I don't know. Hollywood should be doing a lot better with this character after all these years. You know, I can't say that I know I seem to be surprised, but I shouldn't be. And I am still of the belief that they should have had an animated weekly Batman series that just dealt with the Batman family, that just dealt with all of the characters and the character dynamics, because animation's the only way to make that, you know, in my opinion, possible to get as much out of it as you can, because it doesn't seem like live action works. For one thing, it takes them too long to make the movies. And you try to make more than one film and you're already, whoever you cast as Batman is either aging out or worse, you know? And that goes for a lot of characters. You try to cast somebody as Damian, they're going to age out before you're even done with the first season of the show.
Well, that's the problem with any child actor, is you've got to pump those movies out so fast before their day is done. You know, if we had more Shazam movies, it was already starting to be a problem in the second one.
Yeah. That's an example of. I thought they were enjoyable up to a point, but it was pointed out to me, and it's something that kind of ruined the second movie for me. Which is where does the wisdom of Solomon come in? Because obviously he had no access to that. You know, being Captain Marvel, he is an adult version of himself. He has the capability to make better decisions because he has the wisdom of Solomon. Mm-hmm. And yet, in order to make these movies what they were, they had to kind of sort of forget that part in his makeup. It's almost like...
I have never been a fan of the change that was made years and years ago with Captain Marvel being Billy Batson. And let me explain that. So we understand Billy Batson says Shazam turns into Captain Marvel. But when he basically summoned Captain Marvel, because there's instances when Captain Marvel is having some inner dialogue and saying, like, you know, I'll bet Billy never expected to be spending his Sunday this way or whatever. So back in the day, they were separate characters, and you know, some things have been expounded upon with other characters. Firestorm's kind of an example of that, where he's really more Ronnie than he is the professor. Back in the day when you had Marvel's Captain Marvel, Marvel, and we had Rick. I can't remember. Was there at the origin of the Hulk? The younger guy.
Oh,
But
yeah,
anyways,
Rick.
with
Yeah.
with the negabands, where he'd put the negabands together and he would summon Marvel from the null space or the negative zone or wherever. I don't recall now. I rarely read the comic, but
Marvel's
they
version
were
of Snapper.
separate characters. So and it's just me being grumpy. I've never enjoyed the child being Captain Marvel. I enjoy him being part of the overall plot of it, but it's like how do you have the, like you said, how do you have the wisdom of Solomon, in a 14-year-old kid, and it's not obviously being used. I mean, you've basically taken a 14-year-old. What's funny in the Shazam movies is that Shazam is far more childish than Billy Batson is in real life.
Yes, he regressed a lot.
A lot.
And it's just it make, on the one hand, I can see what you were going for and trying to make it a family friendly movie, but I still think you could have achieved that if you either allowed him to be an adult or to be what he truly was, which is he's a magical being. That's really what he is. And he is supposed to be the best in all areas, in terms of physical strength, speed, but also in wisdom. He makes the best decisions. And Rick Jones is the character.
Rick Jones, that's it.
Basically Marvel's version of Snapper Car. So
and that's all I could think about was it's Rick, and I'm thinking like Snapper Car. No, that was the DC's mascot for the Justice League, and I could not wrap my head. Rick Jones, and Jones is such a odd name to try to remember, anyways. Obviously,
a character that I think if they had to do over again, or if they had come to me to restart the Marvel Universe, that's the character that you want to be the audience in all of this.
But yeah, that's just it. That should be like your exposition character. That's one of the things that made back to Batman. That's one of the things that made Batman such an approachable comic to read, because once you introduced Robin into it, your child audience had somebody that they could identify with. And I was that way when I was watching the old Adam West series. Is I never, when I'd go out and play or whatever, of course everybody wanted to be Batman, but on the show, I identified and gravitated more towards Robin because I understood Robin more. Batman was like this, big father figure thing, where Robin was obviously not by realistic age, but Robin was another kid. So he was a good sounding board, so Snapper Carr being there as the sounding board, as the exposition, is a great idea.
Well, but I also liked when Robin was originally created that he was also kind of smart. They gave him a lot of, there were certain adventures where Robin would be the one to actually solve the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that. As a kid, that also played well with me.
Yeah.
Because I could, it isn't just the fact that he's just there. He's a contributing member to the duo. He's not just there because he's this kid that Batman's trained to fight. He's working on his mental development and teaching how to be a detective. But that's the reason why I also wanted the rest of the Batman family. The relationship between all of, let's just call them what they are, all his kids, I think is It's just amazing. And yeah, like you said before, the fact that he doesn't want to acknowledge that it's a family, even though that's really what they are. They are his kids. He's a dad. He's got all these kids, and it, yeah.
Well, that's why Jason worked out so much better in the reinterpretation of him, because originally he was just a Dick Grayson clone.
Yeah.
I mean, almost entirely a Dick Grayson clone, and he didn't play well with the audience because he was boring, because we already read that story. So when they kind of soft rebooted him and made him just kind of a punk, and they're like, yeah, he was terribly unlikable, obviously still is, but there was a great dynamic there. Not only as Batman bringing this kid in to help him fight crime, but this kid has had his foot in that crime, and has a lot of the attitudes, and so it was a good opportunity to story that out. DC, I don't know. I suppose that they really did have a lot of pushback on the character to have the decision to the 1-900 number to call in and either save or kill off Jason. I actually phoned in. I spent my 99 cents or whatever it was to vote on that. Then we got Tim, and Tim was an excellent bridge between those. You had somebody that wasn't
Mike, let me cut in for a moment. I gotta ask this.
Okay.
You put it out there, so I'm gonna ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
You spent your 99 cents. How did you vote?
I voted to keep him alive because I saw the potential where the story could go, where you could take a character and mold him into something that he was not. He was a little thug. I thought there was great opportunity for a storyline there to eventually write him that way. I think he suffered because the writers didn't really see that as the opportunity, or maybe their plan was too long played out. I don't know the reasonings behind it. I think it was a terribly missed opportunity because they ended up doing that. You've got Red Hood now, which is still just a jackass, but he's been molded into being something that was a borderline supervillain into a pretty solid anti-hero that does work. He is okay now, and I think the opportunity was there, and I think it was missed, and I saw that in the character, so I voted to keep him alive. I was obviously in the minority, and things turned out the way they did, and they worked out well.
Oh, well. See, now I agreed with you. I wanted to keep him alive. I didn't believe in actually killing Robin, but in the end, it all worked out. We were able to get Tim. We were able to get all those characters. I'm a big fan of even some of the characters they have now. I love Batwing. I love the Signal. I think they're great characters, and especially the idea of having the Signal. So now you've got somebody around that can actually do stuff during the day and keep tabs on everything and be the person who can help protect Gotham while everybody else is actually getting some sleep after staying up all night just kicking butt, taking names, snapping necks and cashing checks, as Jason would say. But
yeah. I liked the idea of the Batman Incorporated, where there were people that had like emulated Batman, across the world, taking inspiration from him, and then him eventually networking with all these people and saying like, "Hey, I am behind what you're doing, so let's resource this and let me help you."
Well, and James, he asked, I was told there can't be a black Batman because Bruce Wayne came from old money, and how would you see his face? Look, here's my thing on all of that. You have characters of color that are part of the entire Bat family, okay? I don't see why it's important to have a black Batman. I'm not saying you can't have one. What I'm saying is that you have, if you build this the way that it is, you have all of these characters. You have an entire family. plus his son. I mean, how are you supposed to put a black Batman in there? You're trying to shoehorn in something. First of all, normally characters that don't fit into a story. I think what they have done is that you now have some characters of color that are actually a part of it, and one of them has the awesome responsibility of basically being in charge of Gotham City while Bruce is recuperating at home. It's a great story because he's not really.
I love, and I'll tell you, there's many people don't agree with me when Bruce was killed off, and in actuality sent through time to fight his way back through time to come back, and Dick took over as Batman and brought Damian on board as Robin.
Yes.
I would have been fine if we kept that. I think it was a good natural progression. Everybody's, people are like, well, Tim's really the more logical heir to the dynasty of Batman, but it's Dick's birthright, which I love Nightwing. I love the character that Dick is, but he as a character, when it comes down to it, knows that he owes everything to that legacy. So when they had Dick and Damian as Batman and Robin, I really, really enjoyed it, and I felt my heart break when Bruce came back in the series, and he's explaining and Dick standing there in the bat suit, and Damian standing there in the Robin gear, and he's explaining, well, I'm back now. I know that you just did this as a placeholder. I appreciate it, but I'm here to take back over now. And Damian, paraphrasing a little bit here of maybe the scenery,
yeah.
Damian turns and looks at Dick and says, does this mean that we don't get to be Batman and Robin anymore? And that told me a lot right there, that that's something that could have stayed. And in my opinion, I think it should have stayed.
Mm-hmm. I would have taken it either way, but I agree with you. I like the dynamic of the relationship between Dick and Damian.
No, they fought like any normal siblings would have.
Yes.
Given Damian's upbringing, he's just absolutely insufferable, and Dick only has so much patience. So
yeah,
I really love the way they played off of each other, and I think there was a lot of opportunity again for growth between those two characters as the roles that they had at that time.
Yeah, it's just and you know what, Gap? There are times. I mean, not Gap, but Wolverine. There are times when, the Batman family is too damn big.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
You know what, though? That's mainly the fault of not having competent writers. Instead of, things have gotten so bad within the comic book industry. It's, you've got good writers, but only every once in a while. You don't have a writer or two come in and then you hand it off to another writer or two that actually know what they're doing and have the ability, not so much to continue what the first set did, but to at least keep up the quality, because now everything's kind of spotty. To me, all these characters deserve to be around. They've earned their place, because when you really think about it, Dick, Barbara, Jason, those three characters alone have been around for at least 30 years or more. Okay, in the case of Dick, I mean, Robin as a character has been around 80 years, 85 really. Oh, geez. Yeah, okay, so there you go. But Barbara, Jason, Tim, heck, the thing about it is, part of the reason why I like Damian is that he's a nice capper to a storyline that was actually began with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. Mm-hmm. So he really is a legacy character held over from that. And so, I understand that there are some people that just flat out don't like Damian. But I'm not one of those people. I love the character of Damien.
Well, he's specifically written to be
they are all
unlikable,
wrong.
and that's why I like him. I think
Yeah.
is because it's you have a fire and you're throwing gas at it, and I think that makes for some great dynamics.
And you were saying, hello, Martin. You were going to
Hello?
say?
Who?
It sounded like you were going to say something.
Oh yeah. There's people. I know there's people that they don't like Damien, and they're all wrong.
Damien's a great character, and it is about character arcs. Everybody's got their own personality quirks. Outside of, I mean, again, like any other parent, Bruce is not perfect. He's far from it. This is a guy that never thought about having kids. And he's got all these kids now. And so you have Dick, who is opposite of Bruce. And Bruce loves that. That's part of the reason why he chose him, because he's nothing like him. Okay? That's the son he chose. And the one who he isn't just probably one of the most competent natural leaders. He's one of the few people that Superman trusts.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was referred to as the heart of the DC universe once.
Yeah. I mean, Superman thinks that Dick Grayson's a great guy, great kid. He's watched him and has seen him grow and mature into the person that he is. Superman trusts him implicitly.
Darwin Cook played that out pretty good in some of his stuff, where Superman and Batman are interacting, and Dick's there, and you can tell that Dick is just fanboying over Superman, and Bruce basically is like, "Don't you have homework you should be doing?" Because he was just annoyed by it, and I loved that.
It's a kid, but over the years, this is a kid that grew to know and understand what his actual responsibilities are and know what he wanted to do with his life. And I think Clark really appreciated that.
Yeah. Well, there's a great line. I cannot remember where it's from, but I'm reminded of it, where another character is berating Batman for taking on Dick at such a young age. You brought a kid. You brought a kid into your fight. You're just why would you want him to turn out? Bring a kid in and have him turn out just like you. And his retort to that is great. He says, I brought him in so he would not become someone like me.
Yeah.
And that tells you everything that you need to know about Bruce's motivation for taking Dick in, because he saw that, the rage was there, the same rage, that he had in the alley. And he thought, I can temper that, and I can refine that, and I can make that into something positive, which is why Dick is the way he is. Because, I mean, you joke about like, oh, he dressed in these flashy colors, he's just a human target, etc. Ha ha. But he let Dick be his own person, but guided him rather than molding him into to be a mini Batman. He guided him, and he taught him, and he let him be his own person, which allowed him to get past that trauma where Bruce hung on to that trauma and made it the essence of his being. So that's
great. Yeah, that's I agree wholeheartedly. Dick Grayson, really, that brings us to the heart of why that character was created in the first place. He was created because he was someone that kids could really gravitate towards, in order to bring more kids into reading the comics. But as a character, he works because he's a constant reminder, in my opinion, of what Bruce lacked.
Mm-hmm.
you know, it would have been great for him to have had someone like him in his life when he was Dick's age. And so he doesn't, you know, Bruce doesn't see himself as perfect. He did what he had to do in order to complete the mission that he gave himself.
Oh, he's fully aware that he's a horrible person.
Yes, that's the way he sees. He doesn't think
he
of
knows
himself
what he
perfect.
turned himself into. You know, he
Yes.
understands entirely what he trained himself to become, and that's exactly why he doesn't want anyone else under his tutelage to be like him, because he knows that moment destroyed and refined his life.
He's saving them. He's saving their souls.
The
way he thinks of it is that I'm already done.
Yeah,
I'm gone. You know.
Yeah, he was broken when he was 8 years old. It was over.
But you don't have to end up like me. You can actually have a life, and you can choose to eventually walk away, which I think is the other reason why he does what he does. He wants to make it easy for them to have a balanced life, to make it easy for them to one day be able to walk away.
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of the reasons he has such a large extended family, that he keeps taking these strays in like he does, because he knows the direction that they can go, and he knows the direction that they don't have to go.
And so having Jason back eases that a little bit for Bruce, because now it's like, okay, so this is my problem child. You know, if I can.
Well, he's got a project on his hand. Yeah, I mean, Damien's one thing, but he's got a real project on his hand with Jason, and it's a way to redeem what he's let himself be haunted with. You know, when Jason initially died, was his probably what he considered to be his one greatest failure. And he has a chance to correct that now.
Now, hold on. Let's pause and go with Wolverine 626 asks, what would your thoughts on Jonathan and Martha Kent being able to have a biological child, giving Clark a sibling? You know what? Here's my thing on that. Part of what makes the Kents who they are is the fact they couldn't have a child. When you alter that, you are altering how much attention that they could give, because now you're creating tension within the relationship. And what I mean is,
right,
you now have a super powered child. That's a lot. If you wanted to basically think of it realistically, why would you want to have another child while having a child who isn't just a child, but he's got super strength and all this stuff, and he is yet to master any of that? You know?
Well, and it's just I was raised as an only child, and I have two daughters, so I can see both ends of this spectrum. But you want to talk about middle child syndrome? Can you imagine being the sibling of Superman, knowing that you're the biological, son or daughter, but there's this other person in the mix, and like you said, that's a real challenge. That's a real chore. I mean, how do you not devote more time and energy to trying to mold this thing that is just potentially just a weapon of mass destruction, and try to shape them? It takes away so much of your time and your mental energy away from trying to raise both kids. And I'm not saying it can't be done, but just logistically, that would be just ridiculously difficult. You're going to fail in some capacity somewhere along the line to one or both of the kids. So him being the only child and him being not their natural child, I think is what makes the character what he is, because he got all of the attention. And the Kents wanted a child so damn bad that they're not going to miss up the one and only opportunity they have to raise a good kid. Which is also one of the problems that I had with the Snyder Superman movie, is Jonathan Kent and Martha, to an extent, were the most horrible role models for a developing Superman to ever put on screen.
Wolverine 626 asks, "What if the biological child was first, though?" Okay, now let's go with that then. Let's say that they had already had a child and they found this one. I don't know if the Kents would have been as eager to adopt this baby then.
No, I don't think they would have at all. I think it would have played out like it did in the old Silver Age comics, where the retcon's a different thing. There was a terrible, one in a century blizzard. They were locked into their farmhouse for months, and she came out as like, oh yeah, well apparently she had a kid. Originally, if you don't know, they found Kal-El in the rockets, and they took him to an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And he lived in an orphanage until the Kents were able to formally adopt him and bring him home. So I think the exact same thing would have played out. I don't know that the Kents would have went back to get him.
And on top of that, you already have a child. So let's just say they had a child already, and say the child was maybe under the age of 10 when they got Cal. You have a superpowered infant, okay?
Well, it depends on it depends again on
which version you go with. Yeah.
You go with the original Silver Age version, and he was a super baby. There are stories about the super baby. You go with the Byrne reboot of it, where he didn't start developing powers until kind of the same thing that the Marvel mutants work. He starts hitting puberty, and all of a sudden switches start getting thrown, and he starts being able to resist fire and can fly and whatever else. That's a lot has to be taken into account with which version of infant Kal-El are we talking about.
Yeah. Martin, you were going to ask.
Yeah, just imagine the complications with the physical part of sibling rivalry.
Oh, geez, God.
Oh, yeah. That's why I don't think a superpowered baby in any interpretation.
The kid is dead.
You want to talk about toddlers having the terrible 2s and terrible 3s. There wouldn't be a person alive in Smallville if you had a superpowered 2-year-old or 3-year-old.
Yeah, I mean,
nothing good would come of that.
Living on a farm was the perfect place because you could hide several things, several mistakes. You didn't have to worry about as much living on a farm away from everyone else, so that you could have those instances where there would be mistakes. Jonathan would have to be pretty handy because you're going to be doing a lot of home repairs.
That is why the Kents are always broke.
But I just think that that's a cool idea, Wolverine. But okay, look. Here's the other thing about this. I can see where you're leaning with the whole Damien thing. Let me help you with my interpretation of the whole Damien thing. Bruce is someone that, again, as I said before, I don't think he ever planned on having kids. I don't think he ever planned on having any kind of a real life. He was completely dedicated to what he's doing. Okay? But how did he... I think the answer lies in how Damien came to be. And that's getting to what I was talking about with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. During the run, this is the early 1970s. Mm-hmm. During that run, Talia drugs Bruce and has her way with him for the specific purpose of doing what she did. Now, they never really went back to that. But somebody who was a Batman fan brought that idea forward. Mm-hmm. And to me, this goes with the whole, James Bond thing. You can't tell me after decades of sleeping with women and not one woman got pregnant. It's gonna, and in this particular instance, it's Ra's al Ghul and his daughter. They both want something from him. And in a way, Ra's wanting Bruce to be his heir to this incredible
Desperately wanting Bruce to
organization.
be his heir. Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
It wasn't like he went, well, now I want you to. He wasn't just picking him. He wanted him because he was the most qualified. And he, you know, whether you want to buy into the original version of his origin, where he, you know, when he met Raish, he was already Batman and had all these skills, or if you wanted to go with the Nolan version
No,
and
let's
have
not.
Raish, you know, I just think that no matter which one you pick, it says something for someone like Ra's al Ghul to be that impressed to the point where he wants you to be his heir and take over this empire. And his daughter believes that you are so qualified that she's already going, you know, she's picking out drapes.
Well, and sometimes Talia does stuff just to spite her father.
Yes, but he wasn't really against that too much because he, you know, he's the ultimate specimen. And, you know, I'm thinking Raish is like, yeah, it wouldn't be too bad to have him as a son-in-law on top of everything else, you know, but she did something that I think the understanding was he was resisting her dad, which on one level is kind of a turn on for her because that's what she does.
Well, what daughter doesn't want to piss off their father by dating the guy that he doesn't want them to be dating?
That's right. So ultimately, having a falling out with her father did something for her. And she felt, you know what? If we can't bring him over to our side, we can at least have the next best thing. And so in the 1970s, you know, it was just like, well, just drug him and, you know, go all GARP on the situation. And, you know, raise the offspring. And that's their way of kind of, or her way, really, because it was her plan. I don't think her dad really approved of that part of the plan.
No, that's why I say she does things to spite her dad.
I just think that I like the character a lot of Damien because even with how he was raised, because you got to think of it from that point of view. This is a kid that never had a chance. It wasn't like his parents had a normal relationship. In this particular instance, it's his mom had him and never told his father.
Well, the kid was weaponized from birth.
That's right. He's a weapon. I mean, he's a weapon. Now, he basically was raised in a way like the way his mother had been raised. Mm-hmm. So he got a chance to see his mom and his grandfather and everything that surrounded him. And then he goes to live with his father, and it's different. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but there are subtle differences.
Yeah, a little less psycho.
Yeah, you know, but here you have this, you know, you have this father that's very dedicated to this mission. And while you can look upon him and think to yourself, oh, so he turned down everything. Is he this great warrior? He's nothing like what you would imagine him to be based on what your mother and grandfather have said about him. And yet, there's a lot more to him. And whereas your grandfather and mother rule in a way where they demand absolute loyalty and through fear, your father uses fear, but not with the people around him. You know, and then, you know, he meets Alfred and it all becomes clear. But I mean, it's a different way of living. And so you have him in that sense, it really is a constant war. But on top of everything else, and this is the other thing about, you know, you got to understand Wolverine 626. Damien was preordained in many ways because when he is a useful addition and a story addition for the book Kingdom Come.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was well before Damian was really introduced as a character into the Batman mythos. And so the success of that book and, you know, Batman having an adult son who looked every bit as like what his dad did at a particular age. Oh, amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. It's Jerry, everybody.
Yay!
Oh, I'm sorry, Jagary is how you have it. So.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
I see another friend is here.
Yes. Hey, there's no
brother?
way I could talk about
Good to
this
see you.
subject.
I talk
and
about
not
you
have-
all the time, dude.
You
In fact,
need a better
I
hobby.
suggested that Sandy Calora take a look at your costumes, your Batman stuff, because you know who he is. He's got Batman head in. So I was telling him, man, you got to check out his leather work, man. It's good stuff. Plus, he built it, or is still building a Batmobile. You know,
Yeah.
and he has his own.
Not so much
Batcave.
now with the gimped up arm, but you know, I'll heal. It'll get better.
Get back to work, man. I
Yeah.
want to see that Batmobile finished.
I wanted to address something that Wolverine 626 said. He said, "Let Dick Grayson be Bruce's son." That was actually addressed in the comics where Tim had lost his mother, and then ended up losing his father, and so Bruce takes Tim in, but he wants to do it the right way. So Bruce formally does adopt Tim. In the storyline, and Dick confronts Bruce about this. He said, it's not a dissimilar situation. You know, you kept me on as your ward, you know, and took care of me, and I appreciate that. But you never made me this offer, and you know, like, why? What the hell? And Bruce tells him, it's like because I did not want to take away from you what you had. You know, he said, I just didn't think it was the right thing to do because you've grown into a strong, you know, man, and I did the best I could with you, but I can't replace your parents. Whereas Tim was old enough when he lost his parents at different points that Tim needed that. I think he needed that background stability more than Dick did, as far as just. Tim did not have the all at one time trauma that Bruce did and that Dick did, and so that goes back to Bruce taking Dick in to make sure he doesn't become something horrifying. Whereas Tim was old enough and developed enough that he didn't need that same upbringing. So Bruce never knew Dick's mother and father, but he did know Tim's dad quite well. They were neighbors. So I think that's why that was done, and they did address that in the comics as to why not let Dick be Bruce's son. I mean, in every aspect except legality, he is Bruce's son. But there was actually an adoption of Tim. Whereas with Dick there was not, but there was, I think, legitimate reasons why that happened the way it played out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, look, he's got kids. Whether you know, he's got kids. These are his children, and it would be great if we could just skip to that. I mean, for all the people that keep complaining, and they are right to do so. After a while, you keep restarting all these Batman films and they start in the same place. Let's just skip all that and go right to the Bat family. And if there's anything you need to understand, you could do like flashbacks or whatever. But for the most part, let's get to the
Like
good
they did
stuff.
with the '89 film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why the Tom Holland movies, I think, started out on such a good foot, because we did not have to revisit Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Peter Parker was already Spider-Man. He already had a few months, if not a year or so, under his belt to get established. So we just kind of picked up the story as he was, brought into the Avengers movies. So we didn't need that. We don't need that with Superman. We don't need that with Batman. I mean, for Pete's sake, there's if you don't know the origin of Superman, like, dude, A, get out of your house, and B, there's Wikipedia. I mean, not everything has to be spoon-fed and explained. It's Superman. Let's just go.
Yeah, the overuse of origin stories in film is just ridiculous.
If it's an obscure hero, that's different,
Superman is one of the single most identifiable characters in the world.
Yeah.
There are very few cultures that don't know who the fuck Superman is.
Yeah. The S symbol is one of the top 3 recognized symbols in the world.
There you go.
Yep.
In the
Next
world.
to the McDonald's M, or the Disney mouse ears, or I mean, just you cannot fabricate anything like that nowadays that can become as iconic. And to me,
Lord, they try.
They do. But Warner Brothers.
Let's say I got just a particular love for the character. Let's say that DC decided, let's do an Animal Man movie. You're not going to start out in the middle of Animal Man's career. Nobody knows who the hell Animal Man is, but me and a handful of other people. So I get it. You're going to have an origin story, but man, I'm telling you what, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, if you don't know their origin stories at this point, I don't know where you've been.
Okay, Monkey. Okay, yeah, the S symbol is like millennials wearing shirts with rock bands they had never heard of.
Never heard of.
Or Che Guevara.
Yeah, it's like walking around with Che Guevara. It's like, that guy's a fucking murderer, right?
Yeah, it's just like, really?
And a black man wearing a Che Guevara is the epitome of irony. It's like, because he was so racist, he hated black people.
Yeah.
Hello, Anima.
Not only black people, he hated indigenous people too.
Yeah. Speaking of indigenous, what's up, Martin?
Hey!
Oh, no. Anyway, look, we've gone quite a while on today's episode, but it's just because it is such a great subject. There are many.
I could go on.
Yeah,
way
we
longer than that.
Well, I would not say that good old Flash here is obsessed with Batman, but I also wouldn't say he isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would say I've recounted it many times before, but my my earliest childhood memory is I am sitting on the floor in front of the TV, and the Adam West Batman series was a UHF channel, and so I'm waiting for my grandmother to tune the UHF in, and I'm sitting there. If you remember the little characters, they're on a stand and you push the bottom of them and they kind of flop around and stuff. So I'm sitting there playing with a Popeye and an olive oil a push puppet, and I'm waiting for my grandmother to tune in the Adam West Batman show, and that is literally my earliest memory. So I have been near and dear with this character since I was 3 years old. Since I could remember anything, it's been part of my life.
We're the same age, aren't we, Flash?
It's just biological for me.
Yeah.
You and I are the same age, as I recall, right?
I'll be 61 later this year.
Yep. So I am a few months younger than you, because I remember watching Batman all the way back to about 2.5, and watching it when it was airing. And we got second season. You got those 2 episodes a week. You know, and
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Unbelievable. Oh,
and dude, was the cliffhanger terrifying for you when you were a kid?
The one that terrified me was the one with the giant oyster, and that stays with me
really.
To this day.
Yeah, I can see why.
I think the one I remembered was when Batman was in the pit with the walls closing in with the spikes. I think that was the one that scared me.
I mean, that got me excited. Don't get me wrong, but because I was excited at the end of each.
I remember the giant oyster. No, I remember all of those, but
yeah, because Robin was being eaten at the end of the episode,
Yes.
And I
Yep.
was freaking out. You could see his legs.
You-
I'm like, no.
You see his feet coming out of the freaking clam. And oh my god!
When I saw
It was a scary show, and I watch it
what is
now,
that
and I
movie?
go like, my God.
Little Shop of Horrors, the scene where he grabs the one guy and lifts him up, and you see his legs kicking.
Yeah.
All I thought of when I saw that scene in Little Shop of Horrors was that scene with Robin.
Yeah.
'Cause it really, that is etched into my subconscious in a way.
It's a trauma memory.
It is. It just freaked me out, him being inside the mouth of that giant clam. And I got freaked out. I went to my mom and dad asking, are they everywhere? Are there giant clams? Am I going to get eaten? And they're looking at me like, son, you need to stop watching so much TV. No, there's no clams that size. Are you sure? I was so freaked out as a kid.
That and quicksand when I was younger.
Yeah,
were the
quicksand.
things.
We all thought quicksand was everywhere and we're going to die from it.
I didn't know
Ironically-
it was, but seriously, it's not everywhere. Because I still keep a rope with me everywhere I go.
Keith, I fucked up once when I was a little kid. I was about 9, and there was cinder block walls, and in between each wall was packed sand. It was for, I don't know what the fuck it was for. It's at a motel we lived at. And the kids that were there, we'd all get up there, and I started sinking in that thing one day, and I couldn't get out. They had to pull me out, and I wondered, is that quicksand? Because that was fucking scary. But my dad said, no, that's not quicksand. Quicksand's water that's just really dense. It's got a lot of debris in it, and you can float in it. He says, you get in there, try to lay down, and you'll float.
Wow.
But good God, yeah, quicksand and fucking giant clams. Oh my God.
Well, listen, this has been a great episode. I hope everybody had a lot of fun. I know I did. It's always great talking Batman.
I
Especially
love how he lies, Flash. I had such a great time.
Oh, come on, man.
He shuts that computer off. He says, thank the Lord that Thursday's done.
God, it's over. Thank God.
Oh, look, I just, that's the reason why I chose this subject, because, you know, look, this gets down to the deep nerd stuff. You know how deep and how real you are to really, with this character, if you can just talk for hours about Batman. And there are all different angles that you can take. And again, I'm just really put off by the fact there are some people that seem to get away with saying stuff that's obviously, in my opinion, not true.
Yeah.
and try to pass themselves off as
Who do you think that is? Who are you referring to?
The director of Dumb 7.
Oh, him.
The movie that you say you don't hate.
No, I don't like the film. I gave it a negative review, but there's two things I do like in that film, and Keith and I've talked about that. Is I actually really liked Colin Farrell's performance in that film. I thought he was great.
No, he was very good. He was very good.
And despite it not making any sense, like how the fuck did he get the Batmobile?
Dude, don't get me started on that car.
But that
You're
chase.
trying to wrap the show up. Do not get me started up on that car.
I'm not gonna talk about the car because I'm not a fan of it either.
My God.
But what I did like was that chase scene in Penguin's, the look
No,
of
that was
horror on
awesome.
his face. That was the best part of the film for me.
Yeah. That was no Batmobile. That was something from Death Race 2000. But
that's it. That's it. You called it.
Oh, did you see Corridor Crew's take off of that trailer for the Batman, and they put Adam West in it and Burgess Meredith?
That was, dude. That was.
It was
cool.
bonkers, and it was awesome.
That was so good.
He's leaping in that scene where he's blacked out. You know, you can't see him. They're firing machine guns at him. You see him and he's doing the jumps.
I know. That was so good. That was so good.
I
wish that one of these days when I'm on the podcast, or maybe one of you guys could come by sometime and film something or whatever. You like getting a tour of all this behind me.
Well, we need to do that. You need to
please. Yes, that is awesome.
do a live tour.
I'll show you the car. You know, shameless plug. If you want to, we keep referring to my car. If you go on Facebook and you look up, and it's on Instagram, but I'm rarely on Instagram. If you go to Golden Age Batmobile, that's where all my progress work is on that car. It's regrettably on hold now because I had to have some major
and this is the 1940s Batmobile, right?
So I'm out of the loop for a while, but I'll get back to it.
You need to let people know yours is the 1940s version from the serial.
Yes, it's a 1949. It's not just like the 40s comic book version, but then it's not like the Batmobile of the 50s.
So it's your interpretation of kind of an
kind of an in between. It leans way more into the 40s,
well, yeah, because I saw the car and it's definitely a 40s model.
Oh yeah, just right on the tail end. But yeah, it's a 47 is when they kind of started doing that. Or 46, 47 is when they started doing that model, and they ran it all through 52 or 53, I think that body style.
I know. Well, we need to do a tour.
Yeah, definitely. I've got nothing but time for at least the next month. So,
well, I've already invited him on my next episode because that next one, as I said before, it's all Star Trek, baby. It's all Star Trek.
I can go on about Star Trek too.
Oh, so yeah, if you're really into the deep nerd stuff, we are going to be covering that with Star Trek next week. Okay, everybody. So let me at least just
Keith, are you going to duck Star Trek?
Yes,
Cam, nobody wants to see my crown jewels, believe me. Nobody.
Okay, all right. I've got to get going too. So you go ahead and end the show your way. I'll stop irritating you guys and get the hell out of here. Everybody have a good day, man. Bye, guys.
Bye, Gary.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Hey, Gary.
So, wow. Cam, really?
I think he's talking about the crystal thing.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I hope too. I mean, we're friends, but we're not that close. But
my wife doesn't want to see those.
I want to thank Shinatsky, James Caserta, my bro, Bobby Johnson, Brandon the anime guy, the lovely and amazing Penny, Peter Vinkman fan site, Miss Anima Confusa, Monkey Jeebus, because Monkey Jeebus is cool, everybody. Wade, Wolverine 626, Gap After Dark, Awesome One, Mrs. A, and of course, Cam. Wow, this has been a really good episode. I
love this. This was awesome.
I think we should do another one, another deep dive. I mean, outside of just Star Trek, I think we should do another just deep dive. And I need to think about what we would talk about, but I will figure that out.
It's 1999.
Well, Gary's going to want to be in on that one too. So, I mean, if I do that, I have to make sure to invite Gary too. Yeah, I will contemplate that. Okay. But really, again, let me just say, thank you, Mike. You are, as always, just a fun guest, a great guy to talk to. Again, we could go on and on and on about this. I have such a good time talking to you, my man.
I enjoy the hell out of it, man. Anytime we bump into each other, it's basically somebody needs to be there with a microphone. You've got a mini show whenever we bump into each other.
That's basically it. Well, thank you. You look. I said it before, and I'll say it again. You are always invited. If you want to just pop on anytime you want, you are always invited to join me, because I really enjoy your takes on things, and again, your mind and the way that it works and the way it sees things. Yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I can't do any of this without Martin. I just want to say a
No.
big thank you to Martin. You are amazing, dude. Seriously. I want to say thank you to Gary for popping in. Again, thank you to everybody that came by and were very patient with me during my not so incredible beginning. And I just really want to thank everybody for giving me the benefit of your precious time this morning. So I just want to wish everybody an incredible day, an incredible bat day. And just let you know that for those of you that missed it, you can always replay this particular episode. Don't forget to share this with your friends, family, hell, even your enemies if you want. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget that we got many other incredible hosts and shows that are part of the Pop Culture Minefield Network. So
thanks for visiting the Bat Cave with me, guys. I appreciated it.
And thank you for the invitation to come by. So on behalf of everybody, including my humble self, have a good afternoon.
See ya.